that we're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. I never saw it coming, not in a million years. The woman I had devoted my life to, the one I believed was my forever, shattered our marriage with a single, casual sentence. I'm going on a date. For a moment, I thought I misheard her. Maybe I was imagining things. I laughed, waiting for the punchline, but her face remained disturbingly calm. There was no smirk, no hesitation, just cold, brutal honesty. A date? I repeated, my throat tightening. Yes, with a coworker, she answered, her voice eerily casual, as if she was talking about grabbing groceries. My world tilted. 7 years of marriage flashed before my eyes. The trips, the laughter, the whispered, I love yous in the dead of night. All of it now meaningless. I clenched my jaw, my chest tightening. Lucy, no. Not Lucy. That name tasted like poison now. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice low and controlled. You're telling me, your husband, that you were going on a date? Like, an actual romantic date? With another man? She sighed dramatically, as if I was the one being unreasonable. I told you, our life has become boring. I need some excitement. It's just dinner. Just dinner. I repeated, my voice growing dangerously quiet. She rolled her eyes. Don't be so dramatic. It's harmless. Harmless? My fists clenched at my sides. Lucy, this isn't harmless. This is cheating. She scoffed. Oh, don't be ridiculous. It's not like I'm sleeping with him. Yet I snapped. Her lips curled into a smile. A cruel, teasing smile. Well, we'll see where things go. The woman I loved was gone, and in her place stood someone I didn't recognize. Lucy, or whatever version of her existed now, pranced around the room, slipping into a deep red dress that hugged her body in all the ways she knew I loved. A deliberate, calculated move. I should have walked away. I should have packed a bag, left, slammed the door behind me. But no, I stood there, watching as she applied her lipstick, my fingers curling into fists. You don't get to do this, I said, my voice laced with venom. She turned to me amused. Do what? Destroy our marriage in real time, I spat. She tilted her head, pretending to consider my words. Then, she reached for her purse and slung it over her shoulder. Relax. I love you. This is just something I need to do for myself. Something inside me snapped. You walk out that door, Lucy, and you don't come back. She smirked, running a finger down my chest. You're so cute when you're mad. I yanked her hand away. Enough. She chuckled and, with one final wink, walked out the door. I stood frozen. The house around me felt emptier than ever. Then, something inside me shifted. The rage, the betrayal. It all coiled into something dark, something powerful. She thought she could humiliate me, walk all over me like I was nothing? No. She had no idea what was coming. I wasn't going to let this slide. I was going to make her regret every single choice she made. I wasn't an idiot. Lucy thought she could manipulate me into accepting her infidelity, but she underestimated me. She thought I would be the pathetic husband waiting at home while she lived out her reckless fantasies. She was wrong. The moment the door shut behind her, I got to work. First, I grabbed my phone and called my best friend, Matt. He picked up instantly. Yo, man, what's up? Lucy is cheating, I said, cutting straight to the point. There was silence. Then a sharp inhale. What the hell did you just say? You heard me. That's dude. Are you serious? Dead serious. Matt cursed under his breath. Tell me everything. I did. Every disgusting, heart-wrenching detail. By the time I was done, he was fuming. You need to get the hell out of there, he said. No, I said. I'm not leaving. Then what the hell are you going to do? I smiled darkly. I'm going to destroy her. I needed proof. If I wanted to come out on top, I needed to document everything. I started small, checking our shared finances, tracking her spending, noting every suspicious transaction. Then, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through her phone. She was careless, too confident. The messages were all there. Explicit texts, plans for a weekend trip, flirty emojis, everything I needed to confirm my worst fears. And then, the final dagger to my heart. Her messages to her lover, Michael. Lucy, can't wait to finally be alone with you. My husband doesn't excite me anymore. You make me feel alive. I clenched my teeth so hard my jaw ached. She was disgusting, but she had no idea I was already 10 steps ahead. I wasn't going to let her come back home like nothing happened. While she was out playing the role of a free woman, I was making sure she no longer had a home to return to. I called a locksmith. How soon can you change the locks? Tomorrow morning, the guy replied. Perfect. Then, I ordered a new nameplate for the front door. One that displayed only my name. Lucy's name? Gone. Erased. As if she never existed. I was going to make her feel what I felt. Utterly replaceable. When she came home that night, she was glowing. The audacity. Hey, babe, she chirped, acting as if she hadn't just gone on a date with another man. I forced a smile. Hey, how was dinner? Her eyes sparkled. Oh, it was nice. I nodded. Glad to hear it. She paused, sensing something was off. Are you okay? I walked over, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. Of course, darling. She smiled, relieved. She had no idea that by this time tomorrow, her entire world would crumble. She had no idea she was about to lose everything. The next morning, Lucy was in an annoyingly good mood. She hummed to herself in the kitchen, making coffee as if she hadn't just ripped our marriage apart. She thought she was in control. She thought she had me wrapped around her finger, that I would sit back like a loyal, pathetic husband while she explored her excitement. She had no idea what was coming. I sat across from her, stirring my coffee slowly. So, any plans today? She glanced at me, hesitating. Oh, just work stuff, she lied. I knew exactly where she was going. I had her entire weekend planned out already. Sounds fun, I said smoothly. She smiled, probably relieved I wasn't fighting her on this. She was mistaking my silence for acceptance. That was her first mistake. That night, I called my lawyer. I want a divorce, I told him, my voice devoid of emotion. Understood, he replied. Do you have any proof of infidelity? I smirked. More than enough. I sent him the text messages, the trip details, and the recordings of her justifying her actions. This is perfect, my lawyer said. This will ensure you leave with everything. Good. Because I wasn't just leaving. I was taking everything she valued with me. Saturday morning arrived, and Lucy couldn't contain her excitement. She was glowing, practically bouncing around the house as she packed her things for her little weekend getaway. She actually had the audacity to walk up to me and kiss my cheek. Don't wait up, she teased, winking. I forced a smile. Wouldn't dream of it. She thought she was walking into the best weekend of her life. She had no idea she was walking in her own downfall. The moment her car pulled away, I sprang into action. The locksmith arrived within the hour. New locks, new keys, new reality. Then, I removed every trace of her from the house, her clothes, her personal items, her name from every bill, account, and legal document. I took back everything. She wanted to feel free. Fine. She was free. Free from me, from this home, from the life she so easily threw away. I wasn't going to stop at just throwing her out. She needed to feel the consequences. So, I sent the screenshots and recordings to her family, her best friends, and even her boss. I kept it simple. I thought you should know what kind of person Lucy really is. Within minutes, my phone blew up with calls and texts. Her mother. Is this real? Lucy would never. Her best friend. Oh my God. What the hell is she thinking? Her boss. We need to have a serious discussion about her professional conduct. Perfect. Sunday evening, she came home. Correction, she tried to come home. She fumbled with her keys, confusion turning to panic when none of them worked. She pounded on the door, screaming my name. I took my time. I let her suffer, let her feel the weight of what she'd done. Finally, I opened the window and leaned out, my expression cold and detached. Check the nameplate, I said. She turned, eyes scanning the door. When she saw that her name was gone, her face crumbled. This isn't funny, she choked out. It's not a joke, I replied. This is what you wanted. Your freedom. Her eyes filled with panic. No, please let me in. I can explain. I shrugged. Not interested. She collapsed against the door, sobbing. Good. Let her feel it. Let her drown in it. She spent the next hour begging and pleading. She swore she was sorry, that she had made a mistake, that she loved me. You don't get to cheat and then come home like nothing happened, I said coldly. But I raised my phone. Keep talking, Lucy. I'll make sure your parents, your boss, and every single person you know gets a front row seat to your downfall. Her face drained of color. Checkmate. She tried one last trick. Tears, seduction, promises of change. I didn't buy it. You already had your fun, I said. Now, you get to live with the consequences. She gasped, clinging to my arm. Please, I yanked away. We're done. Now leave. She hesitated. Where will I go? I smiled. Not my problem. She had destroyed us with her selfishness. Now, she could deal with the wreckage alone. 2 days later, the divorce papers arrived at her office. She refused to sign at first. She begged me to reconsider. I didn't. You made your bed, I said, staring her down. Now lie in it. She broke down. She had finally lost everything. And for the first time, I felt peace. Lucy didn't just lose me. She lost everything. The fallout was swift and merciless. Her family was horrified. Her mother refused to even speak to her. Her boss fired her on the spot. Turns out, sleeping with a coworker while married didn't exactly scream professionalism. And Michael? Her lover abandoned her the moment things got messy. He was a coward, a man who only wanted the thrill, not the responsibility. The second Lucy's life fell apart, he ghosted her. Now, she had no husband, no job, no home, and no affair partner to run to. She was completely alone. She called me, over and over. I ignored every call, every message. Until one day, she showed up at my workplace. I should have had security throw her out. But instead, I met her in the parking lot, arms crossed as she stood there, disheveled and desperate. Tears streaked down her face. Please, just talk to me. I didn't say a word. I made a mistake, she sobbed. I should have never. God, I was so stupid. I raised an eyebrow. You think? I'll do anything, she whispered. I'll be the perfect wife. I'll make it up to you. Pathetic. I took a step forward. Lucy, I said quietly, what exactly do you think happens now? She blinked, hopeful. Will we fix this? I laughed coldly. No. I finished watching your life fall apart. Her face crumpled. You wanted excitement, I reminded her. Well, congratulations. You got it. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing. I walked away. My revenge wasn't just about kicking her out. It was about making sure she never recovered. She tried moving in with friends, but none of them wanted anything to do with her. She tried getting a new job, but no one would hire her after the scandal. She had ruined herself. And I thrived. New job, new house, new life, and eventually a new woman. Months later, I ran into Lucy at a coffee shop. She looked broken. Her hair was unkempt, her clothes worn. The second she saw me, her eyes lit up with desperate hope. Can we talk? She pleaded. I sighed. Lucy, there's nothing left to say. She swallowed hard. Are you seeing someone? I smirked. Yes. Her face shattered. But we... No, I said firmly. There is no we. She trembled. Do you still love me? I looked her in the eyes and said the words that destroyed her. I don't even remember loving you. She choked back a sob. I lost everything, she whispered. I nodded. Yeah, and you deserve it. Then, without another glance, I walked away. Her punishment wasn't just losing me. It was knowing she could never get me back. The divorce was finalized. She tried fighting it, but with all the evidence, she had no case. She lost everything in the settlement. Her financial security? Gone. Her reputation? Destroyed. Her marriage? Over. She had made her choice, and I had made mine. I chose to walk away and never look back, because real revenge is knowing that she will regret her choices every single day for the rest of her life. For the first time in years, I felt free. No more lies. No more betrayal. Just me, my future, and endless possibilities. And Lucy? She would spend the rest of her life wishing she had never thrown me away. But I was already too far gone. She lost me forever. Months passed. Lucy? She was a ghost in our old social circles. Word spread about what she had done. She tried dating again, but no man wanted to be her second choice. She tried reaching out to old friends, but they wanted nothing to do with her. She had dug her own grave, and she was forced to live in it. One night, I received a letter in the mail. From Lucy. I debated throwing it away, but curiosity won. I opened it. I ruined everything. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know. I was wrong, and I will never stop regretting what I did. I smiled. Good. She should regret it. But forgiveness? That would never come. 1 year later, I sent Lucy a wedding invitation. Not because I wanted her there, because I wanted her to know I had moved on. She never replied, but I heard through the grapevine. She cried for days. Perfect. I ran in her one final time. She was barely recognizable. Are you happy? She asked softly. Very, I said. She swallowed hard. I wish. I cut her off. Too late. And, just like that, I walked away. For good. Lucy's downfall was not just a temporary consequence. It was permanent destruction. She lost everything. She tried finding a new job, but her previous employer had already spread word about her unprofessional behavior. No company wanted to hire someone who had slept with a coworker while married and then faced public humiliation. She tried moving in with friends, but no one wanted to take in someone who had betrayed the person who loved her the most. Her parents? Ashamed of her. They wouldn't even let her stay at their house, embarrassed by what she had done. She had no home, no husband, no career, nothing. And I was just getting started. Lucy thought her humiliation ended at losing me. Wrong. Word spread about her betrayal. Through mutual friends, her co-workers, and even social media. People whispered behind her back. Some laughed outright. She tried dating again, but every potential partner quickly discovered her past. You're the one who cheated on your husband and got kicked out, right? One man reportedly asked her on a date. She left in tears. Her reputation? Destroyed beyond repair. No one wanted to take her seriously anymore. She was no longer desirable, exciting, or wanted. She was a warning, a lesson, a joke. And I thrived. One evening, I received a letter in the mail. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Lucy. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. I ruined everything. I don't deserve your forgiveness, and I know that. But I need you to know. I was wrong, and I will never stop regretting what I did. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I destroyed it. I don't expect you to ever speak to me again, but please, just know that I will hate myself for this for the rest of my life. I smirked. Good. She should regret it. But forgiveness? That was something she would never get from me. 1 year later, my life had fully moved on. New home, new career, new love. I had won. And Lucy? She was still drowning in her own mistakes. To make sure she truly understood what she had lost, I sent her an invitation to my wedding. Not because I wanted her there, because I wanted her to see how replaceable she was. She never replied, but I heard through mutual friends that she cried for days. Perfect. I ran into Lucy one last time. She was a shadow of the woman I once knew. Tired eyes, weight lost from stress, a hollow expression. Are you happy? She asked softly. Very, I said. She swallowed hard. I wish. I cut her off. Too late. And just like that, I walked away. For good. Because real revenge? It wasn't just taking back my life. It was knowing that she would regret losing me for the rest of hers. That we're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. The first crack in their marriage was subtle, so faint that Anna barely noticed it at first. It wasn't an explosive argument or a betrayal. It was quiet, insidious, a growing void that settled between her and Philip like a shadow. Anna could pinpoint the moment when the warmth of their relationship began to cool. It was after the birth of their second child. Philip's focus shifted almost entirely to his career and the children, leaving Anna to fend for herself emotionally. At first, she tried to adapt. She volunteered at the kids' school, joined a book club, and threw herself into managing the household. But the more she gave, the less she felt seen. Are you even listening to me? She had asked one evening as they sat in the kitchen. Philip barely looked up from his laptop. Of course, he replied, his tone distracted. Anna sighed, staring down at the plate of food she'd cooked. She had spent hours preparing his favorite meal, but it might as well have been a frozen dinner for all the appreciation she received. The first time Anna met David was at her gym. He was a personal trainer, hired to run a new fitness program. His charm was effortless, his grin infectious. Where Philip was stoic and methodical, David was lighthearted and spontaneous. "Mrs. Lane, right?" David had said after their first session. "Anna," she corrected with a smile. "No need to make me feel ancient." David laughed. "Fair enough, Anna. You're doing great, by the way. Most people give up halfway through those burpees, but you powered through." His praise was like a balm on her neglected ego. For the first time in years, someone was paying attention to her. Their conversation started innocently enough, small talk between sets. But soon, Anna found herself lingering at the gym longer than necessary. She told herself it was just a harmless friendship, even as her heart raced whenever David flashed her a smile. The night they crossed the line was both exhilarating and terrifying. It started with an innocent coffee after a particularly grueling workout. "It's nice to talk to someone who actually listens," Anna said, her hands wrapped around the warm cup. David leaned back in his chair, his gaze steady. "I'd listen to you all day if I could." "You're captivating." Anna's cheeks flushed. "You're just saying that." "I'm not," David said, his tone serious. "Philip doesn't see what he has. Does he?" Anna's heart skipped a beat. She opened her mouth to protest, but found herself unable to form the words. Instead, she let the silence linger, her unspoken agreement hanging in the air. From that moment, their dynamic shifted. A lingering touch here, a stolen glance there. The boundaries they once respected blurred until they were no longer visible. David was the one who first suggested they meet outside the gym. "Just a drink," he said, his tone casual. "No harm in that, right?" Anna hesitated, but the thrill of doing something for herself, something selfish, was too tempting to resist. Their first rendezvous was electric. Away from the fluorescent lights of the gym and the prying eyes of neighbors, they could be themselves. David was attentive, showering her with compliments and making her laugh until her cheeks hurt. "Why should you settle for less?" David asked one evening, his voice low and conspiratorial. "You deserve someone who puts you first, someone who sees you." Anna stared into her wine glass, her thoughts swirling. For so long, she had felt invisible. But here, with David, she was seen, heard, wanted. The idea of leaving Philip began as a flicker, a dangerous thought she tried to suppress. But as weeks turned into months, the flicker grew into a flame. And when David suggested they take their relationship to the next level, Anna didn't hesitate. "I have to be careful," Anna said one evening as they planned their first overnight rendezvous. "Philip isn't stupid. He'll notice if something's off." David leaned closer, his hand brushing hers. "Let me worry about that," he said with a confident smirk. "We'll be careful. This will be our little secret." But secrets have a way of unraveling, and neither Anna nor David realized just how closely they were being watched. Philip wasn't a man prone to suspicion. He had always trusted Anna implicitly, even as their relationship became strained. But trust has its limits, and Anna's recent behavior had crossed his. The late-night gym sessions, the hush phone calls, the way she avoided his gaze when he asked about her day. It didn't take long for Philip's unease to grow into certainty. One night, when Anna claimed to be meeting friends for dinner, Philip followed her. From his car, parked discreetly across the street, he watched as she slipped into a cozy bistro. Minutes later, David arrived, his hand brushing against Anna's lower back as they laughed and chatted like old lovers. The realization hit Philip like a freight train. His wife wasn't just distracted or unhappy, she was unfaithful. But instead of confronting her immediately, Philip chose a different path. He would let Anna believe she had the upper hand. He would watch, wait, and gather everything he needed to destroy her carefully constructed facade. Philip's revenge didn't need to be impulsive or messy. It would be cold, calculated, and devastating. The silence in the room was deafening after the sound of the wedding rings snapping under Philip's pliers. Anna's wide, tear-filled eyes darted between Philip and the trash where the mangled symbols of their marriage now lay. "Philip," she began, her voice trembling, "please, let's talk about this." We can fix. Fix? Philip interrupted, his tone as cold as a winter wind. There's nothing left to fix, Anna. You've made sure of that. David, still pale and motionless, finally found his voice. Look, man, I think we're all just a little heated right now. Philip turned to him, his gaze sharp as a blade. Heated? He repeated, a dark smirk playing on his lips. Oh, don't worry. I'm as calm as I've ever been. You, on the other hand, should leave before I lose my patience. David hesitated, glancing at Anna, who shook her head imperceptibly. Philip stepped forward, his grip tightening on the baseball bat. Ow! Now! The weight of Philip's command was undeniable. David backed away, grabbing his bag and muttering a hasty, "I'll wait outside," before fleeing through the front door. Anna's defiance flared in David's absence. You can't just throw me out of my own house, she shouted, her fists clenching at her sides. This is my home, too. Philip's chuckle was low and humorless. Your home? He gestured around the room. You mean the home I built? The home where I've worked tirelessly to provide for you and the kids while you entertained your guest? Don't you dare play the victim. Anna spat, her voice rising. You ignored me for years. You don't get to act like the saint here. Philip's expression darkened, but he didn't rise to her bait. Instead, he walked to the door, opening it wide. Leave, Anna. Go to your lover. Tomorrow, you'll receive the divorce papers, and you'll learn what happens when you gamble with someone who always plays to win. Philip didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat in his study, surrounded by files and photographs, evidence he had quietly gathered over the past several weeks. He had hired a private investigator the moment his suspicions about Anna solidified, and the man had been thorough. There were photos of Anna and David leaving restaurants, entering hotels, even sharing intimate moments in Philip's car, a car he had bought for Anna as an anniversary gift. There were phone records, receipts for gifts Anna had purchased with their shared account, and even copies of text messages retrieved from the cloud. Philip stared at the evidence, his mind racing with plans. He wouldn't just divorce Anna. He would dismantle her. By dawn, Philip had made a list. Expose Anna's infidelity. Use the evidence in court to secure custody of the children and the house. Control the narrative. Present himself as the stable, devoted father wronged by his wife's betrayal. Isolate Anna. Cut her off socially and financially, ensuring she had no foothold to regain control. Take away her support system. Target David, exposing his opportunism and rendering him useless to Anna. The courtroom was a battlefield, and Philip came prepared. His lawyer, Jack Forrester, was a shark, a man known for his ruthless efficiency and unshakable confidence. Anna had hired her own attorney, Rachel Carter, a sharp and determined litigator who specialized in high-stakes divorces. But from the moment the trial began, it was clear that Philip had the upper hand. Forrester began by painting a picture of Philip as a devoted husband and father. He presented glowing testimonials from colleagues, neighbors, and friends. Photos of Philip coaching his son's soccer team, attending parent-teacher conferences, and hosting birthday parties painted him as the epitome of stability. When it came time to address Anna's infidelity, Forrester didn't hold back. These photos, he said, holding up a series of damning images, were taken over the course of 3 months. They show Mrs. Lane and Mr. David Hill engaging in an extramarital relationship. But it's not just the affair that's concerning, it's the brazenness. These encounters occurred in the family home, in Mr. Lane's vehicle, and in places where they could have been seen by their children's acquaintances. Anna shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her composure cracking as the evidence piled up. Forrester continued. Mrs. Lane also misused marital funds to support Mr. Hill. Financial records show she spent thousands of dollars on him, money that should have gone toward the family's needs. When Rachel Carter tried to counter, arguing that Philip had neglected Anna emotionally, Forrester was ready. Neglect? He repeated, feigning incredulity. My client worked tirelessly to provide for his family. He supported his wife's interests, bought her a car, and ensured she had every comfort. Neglect isn't an excuse for betrayal. Outside the courtroom, Philip's revenge extended beyond the legal proceedings. He reached out to their mutual friends, sharing just enough of the story to sway their opinions. I don't want to badmouth Anna, he would say, his tone heavy with feigned reluctance. "But I think you deserve to know the truth." Words spread quickly. Invitations to social events dried up for Anna, while Philip was inundated with messages of support. Meanwhile, Philip quietly worked to undermine David. He leaked information about David's financial instability and history of gambling to David's clients and associates. Within weeks, David's reputation and his career was in shambles. After weeks of grueling testimony, the judge delivered the ruling. Given the evidence presented, it is clear that Mr. Lane has demonstrated stability and a commitment to the well-being of his children. Therefore, primary custody of the children and ownership of the marital home will be awarded to Mr. Lane. Anna's gasp echoed in the courtroom. Her lawyer tried to console her, but the damage was done. Philip had won. As the courtroom emptied, Philip caught Anna's eye. There was no gloating, no smirk, just a quiet, resolute finality. Philip stood outside the courthouse, the brisk autumn wind tugging at his jacket. The victory should have felt sweeter, but as he watched Anna and David slink away, their faces pale and defeated, a pang of something unfamiliar gnawed at him. Regret? No, not regret. He shook off the thought as his lawyer, Jack Forrester, approached. "Well fought," Forrester said, handing Philip a folder with the finalized court documents. "You've secured everything you wanted: custody, the house, and your reputation." Philip nodded, his face unreadable. "Thank you, Jack." Forrester hesitated, sensing his client's somber mood. "This is a win, Philip. Don't forget that." "I won't," Philip replied, though his voice lacked conviction. He turned toward his car, leaving the courthouse and the chaos of the past few weeks behind him. Anna stared at the peeling wallpaper in David's cramped apartment. Boxes of her belongings were stacked haphazardly in the corner, a stark reminder of everything she had lost. The children were with Philip that weekend, as they would be for most weekends now. The judge's ruling had been clear. Philip was the stable parent. Anna, by contrast, was painted as impulsive and reckless. David shuffled into the room, his disheveled appearance mirroring the state of their lives. He dropped a stack of unopened bills on the table with a sigh. "We're behind on rent," he muttered, avoiding her gaze. Anna clenched her fists. "What happened to the money I gave you?" David flinched, his guilt written across his face. I made some bad bets. You gambled it away?" Anna's voice rose, trembling with fury. "I was trying to fix things," David shouted back. "I thought I could double it, maybe triple it, get us out of this mess." Anna's laugh was bitter. "Out of this mess? You were the mess, David. I left my marriage, my children, for you, and now I'm stuck in this hellhole with nothing." David opened his mouth to respond, but seemed to think better of it. Instead, he grabbed his coat and muttered, "I need some air." When he didn't return that night, Anna wasn't surprised. The next morning, Anna checked her bank account and froze. The last of her savings was gone. The reality hit her like a physical blow. David had drained her account before disappearing. Her hands trembled as she stared at the empty balance. Panic set in, followed quickly by despair. She had no money, no home, no support. She thought about calling Philip. She even dialed his number, but her finger hovered over the call button. What could she say? That she was sorry? That she needed his help after everything she'd done? In the end, she hung up without leaving a message. Visitation weekends were bittersweet. Anna cherished every moment with her children, but the pain of saying goodbye at the end of each visit was unbearable. On one such weekend, she took them to the park. They laughed as they climbed the jungle gym and chased each other through the fallen leaves. For a few hours, it almost felt normal, but when it was time to drop them off at Philip's house, the illusion shattered. Philip opened the door, his expression neutral but polite. The children ran inside, their laughter echoing in the hallway. "Philip," Anna said hesitantly, lingering at the doorstep. He raised an eyebrow, waiting. I wanted to say I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "For everything. I know I ruined so much, and I've paid for it every day since." Philip studied her for a long moment, his face unreadable. Finally, he nodded. "I've forgiven you, Anna, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It's better this way, for me and for the kids." His words, though calm, cut deep. Anna nodded, tears spilling over as he closed the door. Philip thrived in the months following the court's decision. He threw himself into work, ensuring financial stability for his family. His evenings were spent with the children, who slowly adjusted to their new normal. Every so often, he thought of Anna, not with anger, but with a sense of finality. She had made her choices, and he had ensured she faced the consequences. For Anna, life became a cycle of survival. She found a job at a local diner, working long hours to pay off debts and save for a better apartment. The glamorous life she had once envisioned with David was a distant memory, replaced by the harsh reality of starting over. But with each passing day, she grew stronger. The shame and regret didn't fade, but she learned to live with them. One evening, as Anna closed up the diner, she paused to reflect on how far she had fallen. Yet, for the first time in months, she also felt a flicker of determination. She wasn't the woman she had been with Philip, nor the woman she had been with David. She was something new, someone who had been broken but was beginning to rebuild. Meanwhile, Philip sat in his study, looking through photos of his children. Their laughter filled the house, a reminder of why he had fought so hard. As he placed the photos back in their frames, he allowed himself a small smile. His life wasn't perfect, but it was stable. And that was enough. Months passed, and the winter chill began to give way to the first hints of spring. For Anna, life had settled into a humbling routine. She worked double shifts at the diner and spent her weekends with the children, who were her only solace. Despite her efforts, she couldn't shake the hollow ache of regret that lingered in her chest. The shame of her choices haunted her every waking moment, and her dreams were filled with fragments of the life she had destroyed. One Sunday afternoon, as she dropped the children off at Philip's house, Anna lingered at the door longer than usual. Philip opened it, his face calm and composed as always. The children ran inside, their laughter echoing faintly in the background. "Philip," Anna began, her voice shaky. He paused, his hand resting on the doorframe. "What is it, Anna?" She took a deep breath, tears welling in her eyes. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I know I can't undo the damage I caused, but I want you to know that I regret it. Every day." Philip's expression softened slightly, though his gaze remained steady. "I've forgiven you, Anna," he said quietly. "But forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to the way they were. Too much has happened. It's better for all of us to move forward separately." Anna nodded, tears spilling over. "I understand," she whispered. "I just wanted you to know." Philip didn't respond, but the faintest flicker of empathy crossed his face as he closed the door. That night, Philip sat alone in his study, a glass of whiskey in his hand. The children were asleep, the house quiet except for the faint hum of the heater. He stared at the flickering flame in the fireplace, his mind replaying Anna's apology. She had looked so different from the woman he had married, fragile and worn, like a shadow of her former self. Part of him felt vindicated, knowing she was paying the price for her betrayal. But another part, a quieter voice in the back of his mind, couldn't help but feel the weight of it all. Revenge had been satisfying in the moment, but as the months wore on, it left a hollow void. His life was stable, his children happy, but there was no denying the scars left behind by Anna's choices, and his own. Philip took a long sip of his drink, letting the warmth spread through him. He had won, but at what cost? For Anna, life continued one day at a time. Slowly, she began to rebuild. She saved enough money to move into a modest apartment, a small but significant improvement from David's cramped and cluttered space. Her job at the diner became more than just a means to an end. She found camaraderie with her coworkers and a sense of purpose in the daily grind. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. One afternoon, as she walked home from work, she paused at a playground. A group of children laughed and played on the swings and slides, their joy infectious. For the first time in what felt like forever, Anna smiled, a real, genuine smile. She didn't know what the future held, but she was determined to face it head-on, no matter how difficult. Years later, Philip stood on the sidelines of his son's soccer game, cheering as the boy scored a goal. His daughter sat beside him, her sketchbook balanced on her knees as she doodled. Life had settled into a steady rhythm, and Philip had found peace in the simple joys of fatherhood and work. He rarely thought about Anna anymore. When he did, it was with a sense of closure. Their lives had diverged, and that was for the best. One evening, as he tucked his children in a bed, his daughter looked up at him and asked, "Are you happy, Dad?" Philip paused, surprised by the question. He thought about everything he had been through. The betrayal, the revenge, the rebuilding. And then he smiled, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "I am," he said, "more than I ever thought I could be." Anna sat in her small apartment, a cup of tea warming her hands. The years had softened the sharp edges of her regret, though the scars remained. She had come to accept that some mistakes couldn't be undone, only lived with. Her children visited often, filling her home with laughter and love. They were her anchor, her reason for moving forward. As she looked out the window at the setting sun, she thought of Philip, not with bitterness, but with gratitude. He had been right to draw the line, to protect himself and their children. Anna closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Her life was far from what she had once dreamed, but it was hers, and that was enough. Let's begin. Ethan's hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles whitening as he parked his car across from the dimly lit bar. His heart raced, a drumbeat of anger and disbelief, as he watched Clara walk through the entrance, laughing in a way he hadn't seen in years. But it wasn't him she was smiling for tonight. He had suspected something for weeks, a lingering perfume on her clothes, her newfound enthusiasm for late-night outings, and the way she seemed more alive after a night's out. At first, Ethan had brushed it off, blaming his insecurities. Clara was a vibrant woman, full of charm and grace. But now, as he sat in the shadows, watching her enter the bar with her best friend, Serena, his doubts crystallized into cold certainty. This wasn't just a girl's night out. Ethan's jaw tightened as a man approached Clara, placing a hand on her lower back. She didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned closer, her body language unmistakable. Ethan's stomach churned. He'd always trusted Clara, given her the freedom to live her life without the chains of mistrust. But this was a betrayal he couldn't ignore. "Why?" he muttered to himself, gripping the edge of the steering wheel so hard it felt like it might snap. But he didn't drive away. Not yet. Rewind to 3 months earlier. Ethan's life had seemed perfect, or so he thought. He and Clara had been married for 12 years, and though their relationship had its ups and downs, he believed they had something real, something unbreakable. Clara had recently taken a job at a high-profile marketing firm. The job required long hours and frequent social outings. At first, Ethan had supported her wholeheartedly. He admired her ambition, her drive to succeed. "It's just drinks with the team," Clara had explained one evening, brushing her auburn hair back as she adjusted her necklace. Nothing to worry about. And he hadn't worried. Not then. But over time, her excuses grew more frequent, her stories more vague. When she came home late at night, her kisses felt hollow, her touch less sincere. Ethan tried to brush it off, attributing it to the stress of her new role. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered that something was wrong. That voice grew louder the night Clara came home at 1 a.m., reeking of cologne that wasn't his. Ethan stared at the empty plate Clara had left for him, the cling wrap still perfectly intact. He hadn't bothered to heat up the dinner she'd lovingly prepared, a gesture that now felt hollow in light of the growing distance between them. The nights she spent with Serena had become routine, and while Ethan didn't doubt her charm drew attention, the way she described those encounters felt off. "They turn me on," Clara had once admitted with a mischievous grin. "But it's you I come home to?" At the time, Ethan had laughed, letting the implicit trust he had in her silence the unease gnawing at his gut. Now, that memory tasted bitter. The cracks had been subtle at first. Clara's once playful teasing became cutting remarks about Ethan's career, his reluctance to join her social outings, or his preference for quiet nights at home. Their once passionate connection now felt transactional. "I love you," she'd say, her eyes flitting past him as though distracted by something, or someone more exciting. Ethan had tried to ignore it, pouring himself into his work and hobbies, hoping that time and patience would bridge the gap between them. But his efforts only seemed to push her further away. One evening, Clara came home after midnight, her laughter echoing down the hallway as she spoke to someone on her phone. Ethan, lying awake in bed, strained to hear her words. "You're so bad," she whispered, a giggle following. "All right, good night." The click of her phone signaled the end of the call, but for Ethan, it was just the beginning. Ethan's suspicions reached a boiling point when a client inadvertently tipped him off. The man's offhand comment about a wild night with Clara's best friend Serena and another woman at a local bar left Ethan cold. It couldn't be Clara, he told himself over and over, but doubt had taken root. Fueled by paranoia, Ethan decided to follow Clara during one of her nights out. Dressed in a simple shirt, a baseball cap pulled low over his face, he parked down the street from the bar where Clara and Serena frequently met. His heart pounded as he watched her step out of her car, dressed to kill in a dress that clung to her curves. She didn't look like a married woman heading out with friends. She looked like a predator on the prowl. Inside, Ethan found a shadowed corner to observe without being seen. The dim lighting played tricks on his eyes, but there was no mistaking Clara's laughter as she danced provocatively with a stranger. The way she leaned into him, the casual intimacy of her hands brushing his chest, left no doubt in Ethan's mind. As the hours passed, Ethan's fury grew. When Clara finally left the bar with the man she'd been dancing with, he followed, careful to stay far enough back to remain unnoticed. They drove to a nearby motel, and Ethan's heart shattered as he watched her disappear inside with the stranger. Ethan didn't confront Clara that night. Instead, he returned home, his mind racing with plans. Confronting her directly would only lead to denial or excuses. He needed proof, not just for himself, but to expose her lies to everyone she'd deceived. The next day, Ethan hired a private investigator. Within weeks, he had everything he needed: photographs, text messages, and even audio recordings of Clara bragging to Serena about her escapades. But Ethan wasn't content to simply end the marriage. Clara had humiliated him, betrayed his trust, and made a mockery of their vows. She needed to feel the same pain she had inflicted on him. Ethan carefully orchestrated his revenge, starting with a public confrontation. He invited Clara's family, friends, and colleagues to what she thought was a surprise anniversary party. Clara arrived, beaming and oblivious, only to find a slideshow playing on a projector, a timeline of her infidelity, complete with incriminating photos and texts. The room fell silent as the truth unfolded before their eyes. Clara's face turned pale, her hands trembling as she tried to stammer out an explanation. "Save it," Ethan said coldly, his voice cutting through the tension. "You've already said enough." Clara's carefully curated image of the perfect wife and professional was destroyed. Her friends turned their backs on her, her job terminated her contract, and her family refused to take her in. But Ethan wasn't done yet. He sent the evidence to Serena's husband, ensuring her complicity didn't go unpunished. Within days, Serena was served divorce papers, and her husband took full custody of their children. For Ethan, the satisfaction of seeing Clara's world crumble was bittersweet. He had loved her once, deeply, and the pain of her betrayal lingered. But as he stood in the ruins of their marriage, he knew one thing for certain: he deserved better. For days after the explosive anniversary party, Clara's calls came in waves. Ethan ignored them, letting his voicemail fill with pleas, apologies, and attempts to explain. But he knew there was nothing she could say to undo the betrayal. "Ethan, please just talk to me," Clara begged in one message. "I made a mistake, a horrible mistake, but you can't throw away everything we've built." Her voice was shaky, desperate. Ethan stared at the blinking notification on his phone before deleting the message without listening to the rest. At work, Ethan kept himself busy, pouring every ounce of energy into his projects. But even the distraction of spreadsheets and meetings couldn't erase the image of Clara in that motel room. At night, he lay awake, haunted by memories of their happier days. Their wedding, their first home, the quiet Sunday mornings spent reading together. "How did it come to this?" he whispered to the empty room. Clara's life unraveled quickly. Word of the anniversary party spread through their social circles like wildfire. Friends who had once admired her charm and charisma now avoided her calls, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. At work, things were no better. The HR department called her in to discuss inappropriate conduct outside of the workplace, citing the damage to the company's reputation. By the end of the meeting, she was handed her termination papers. Her family, humiliated by the public spectacle, offered little sympathy. "We raised you better than this," her father had said, his voice laced with disappointment. Left with no job, no friends, and no home, Clara turned to Serena for support, only to find her just as broken. Serena's husband had moved out, taking their kids and filing for divorce after receiving the damning evidence Ethan had sent. "You ruined my life," Serena hissed during a tearful confrontation. "We were supposed to have fun, not lose everything." Clara's world was crumbling, and there was no one left to help her pick up the pieces. Ethan wasn't immune to the aftermath of the scandal. While he had dealt a devastating blow to Clara and Serena, he still carried the weight of their betrayal. Nights were the hardest. Alone in the home they had shared, he found himself replaying moments from the past, questioning whether he had missed signs or could have done something differently. But instead of sinking into despair, Ethan made a conscious decision to rebuild. He joined a local gym, finding solace in the rhythmic pounding of his feet on the treadmill. He reconnected with old friends, filling his weekends with hiking trips and game nights. Most importantly, he began therapy. "I feel like I'll never trust anyone again," he admitted during one session. "She wasn't just my wife, she was my best friend, and she threw it all away." The therapist nodded. "It's natural to feel that way, Ethan, but trust isn't about other people. It's about your ability to heal and recognize your worth." Clara reached out to Ethan one last time, showing up unannounced at his office. "Please, Ethan," she said, her voice trembling. "Just hear me out." Reluctantly, Ethan agreed to meet her for coffee at a nearby cafe. As she sat across from him, her once confident demeanor was replaced by a shadow of the woman he had known. "I'm sorry," Clara began, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I never stopped loving you. I was stupid and selfish, and I've lost everything because of it." Ethan listened silently, his expression unreadable. "I've started therapy," Clara continued. "I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. I want to be better, Ethan. Even if we can't fix this, I want you to know that I'm trying." For the first time, Ethan felt a glimmer of pity for her. But it wasn't enough to erase the pain she had caused. "I appreciate you saying that," he said finally. "But this is something I can't come back from, Clara. I hope you find the peace you're looking for, but it won't be with me." Months turned into a year, and Ethan found himself thriving in his new life. He had moved to a smaller, cozier apartment, free of the memories that haunted their old home. Through his hobbies and social outings, he met new people, including a kind-hearted woman named Lily. Their connection was easy, natural, and untainted by the shadows of the past. Lily didn't rush him. She understood his scars and gave him the space he needed to trust again. Slowly but surely, Ethan opened his heart, finding joy in the simple moments they shared. On the day of his divorce finalization, Ethan visited a secluded beach, a place where he and Clara had once vacationed during happier times. As the waves lapped at the shore, he stood with a letter in hand, a farewell to the life he had once envisioned. "Dear Clara," he wrote, "I loved you more than words can say. But love isn't enough without trust and respect. You broke us in ways I never thought possible, but I'm choosing to let go. Not for you, but for me. I wish you healing, but I'm moving forward. Goodbye." He folded the letter and let the wind carry it into the sea. Ethan's story was one of heartbreak, resilience, and ultimately, redemption. Though Clara's betrayal had left deep scars, it also gave him the strength to reclaim his life and discover a new, brighter future. As he walked away from the shore, he felt lighter, the weight of the past finally lifting from his shoulders.